Welcome back to Breaking the Chains Healing from Emotional and Physical Abuse. You all can donate by clicking the link in the description below. Also, you can all buy my merchandise by clicking the link in the description below. Thank you all so much for your continued support. This is season 4, episode 2. Again, I am your host, Kelly. The topic that I will that we will that I will be discussing is transitioning into the healing process from emotional abuse. Emotional abuse is when your abuser demands to control their victim's emotions by weakening your self confidence. 1. You have to acknowledge the emotional abuse. Here are some examples of emotional abuse so that you can recognize the mental abuse. Ways to recognize the mental abuse: emotional blackmail, meaning that the emotional abuser will withhold love from their victim. Also, using your fears and values against you. Also, the abuser will make unreasonable demands, and your abuser will become angry when their victim does not agree with their beliefs or opinions. The emotional abuser will command for all of their victims' time and attention. Your abuser will degrade your thoughts and emotions by being dismissive of your feelings. Example that your abuser will use: you're just being very sensitive. Also, by gaslighting their victim by making him or her feel like they're imagining things. Your mental abuser is creating an unstable environment for you by his or her sudden mood changes, and you feel like you are walking on eggshells. Also, your abuser will start arguments over small issues. Uh, your abuser also will be using verbal attacks, making belittling statements to their victim. And here's an example by your abuser: you're so crazy. Your emotional abuser will use blaming tactics instead of taking let me restate that. Your emotional abuser will use blaming tactics instead of taking responsibility for his or her actions. Example that your abuser will use: it's your fault we never have any money. A mental abuser will use control tactics to their victim by keeping you isolated from healthy relationships with your family and friends. Your abuser wants to know where their victim is at all times. 2. Aftermath of emotional abuse. PTSD, which is post traumatic stress disorder, painful memories and flashbacks, hard time concentrating with the task at hand, socially withdrawn, insomnia, tension in your muscles, which can lead to hypertension. You may feel your heart beating more quickly than it should. Unexplained aches and pains, night terrors, chronic pain, low self-esteem, fear, guilt, anxiety disorders, or clinical depression. 3. Healing from emotional abuse. There are 5 characteristics of healing from emotional abuse. Number 1. And these are the 5 characteristics of healing from emotional abuse. Number 1, acknowledge the emotional abuse. When you recognize the abuse that you experienced was a real event, it can be difficult to do. However, that's how a victim of mental abuse begins to transition into the healing process. Also, when you begin to acknowledge the emotional abuse that you experienced, then you will begin to take power back over your life. 2. Change the negative thought patterns. All of the lies that your emotional abuser told you will begin to overtake your thought process. Therefore, you need to replace your abuser's lies with the true characteristics about yourself. Here are some examples of some true characteristics that you can state about yourself. I am smart, lovable, humble, hardworking, beautiful, or handsome, and you can state many more positive characteristics about yourself. 3. Participate in self-care. When you begin putting your self-care first, then you will have more energy and support to overcome whatever struggles that you are facing. Examples: embrace your desires. Make your physical, emotional, and spiritual needs a priority. Get yourself moving. Get enough exercise and sleep. And create healthy relationships with others that offer you love and support. 4. Don't rush yourself, for healing takes time. Always remember that healing from emotional abuse will take time for you to heal from, so you're allowed to be empathetic and patient with yourself while you're healing. Also, set your boundaries with your mental abuser if you both have to remain in contact, and stick to your boundaries with him or her. 5. If you need professional help, please seek it. Therapy is a helpful resource, no matter what stages of the healing process you are experiencing. And working through the most traumatic times of the emotional abuse, you may need extra help working through all your emotions and professional help that is always available. I want to go back and discuss more about each topic that I discussed. In order to transition into the healing process, if you've been through emotional abuse, you have to acknowledge it. Acknowledge that the emotional abuse happened, and that way you can begin to transform into it. If you don't acknowledge that you have been emotionally abused, then you can't start to transition into the healing process. And the aftermath of emotional abuse. Here are some you could have like post traumatic stress disorder from um, all the emotional abuse. You could have like painful memories and flashbacks of any time of the mental abuse that you experienced with your abuser. You could also have a hard time concentrating with the task at hand, meaning that all of a sudden, like all the mental abuse that happened with your abuser will just like maybe pop up in your mind while you're at work or while you're grocery shopping. Um, you could be like socially withdrawn, like you don't want to like socialize with your family or friends. And you could have insomnia, which meaning you're having a hard time getting enough sleep. Um, you could have tension in your muscles, which can lead to hypertension, which meaning uh, your blood pressure is running higher than it should be. And you could also feel your heart beating more quickly than it should, too. That could also be anxiety, caused by anxiety from the mental abuse. You could have unexplained aches and pains. You could have night terrors about the emotional abuse that happened with your abuser. You could have chronic pain, which could lead to like um, fibromyalgia. You could have a low self esteem. You could have fear of what could, fear of a lot of different things, especially if you've been in an emotionally abusive relationship. Um, you could have guilt that you stayed in the relationship too long or that you didn't stand up for yourself more. You can have clinical depression, from it. You can also have, you can be really, depressed from all the mental abuse that you experienced. And you can also have anxiety disorders. And I will state this, it is okay to see a therapist or psychiatrist or psychologist if you have like clinical depression or you have anxiety disorders. And like when you acknowledge it too, it, when you acknowledge you've been mentally abused, you will begin to take power back over your life. And you have to change those negative thoughts, because especially if you've been um, emotionally abused, your abuser has told you pretty horrible lies about yourself. So there will be times when your abuser's lies will pop up in your head. Therefore, you have to change your way of thinking into positive thinking, like state the true characteristics about yourself. Like, say that that you're smart, say that you're lovable, you're humble, you're hardworking, you're beautiful, you're handsome, you know, many more characteristics that you could state about yourself. And you need to participate also in self care. You need to put more energy and support into self care when you're transitioning into healing from emotional abuse. The reason you want to put more energy and support into self care is so you can overcome whatever struggles that you are facing. Um, Here's examples of self care: embrace your desires, um, make your physical, emotional, and spiritual needs a priority. Get yourself moving, meaning you can like go exercise or go for a walk. Um, Even if it's cold outside, like you could walk in Walmart or walk in the mall. You could just walk anywhere. Or if it's warm outside, you could take a walk outside. Um, that would also help. And you need to create healthy relationships with others that offer you love and support. So, and don't rush yourself, because healing takes time. It doesn't happen like overnight. Um, so you need to be empathetic with yourself while you're transitioning into healing from emotional abuse. And you need to continue to set your boundaries with your mental abuser, especially if you have to stay in contact with him or her. And if you need to seek professional help, please seek it. Don't feel bad. Therapy is a helpful resource, um, especially if you're experiencing and working through the most traumatic times of the emotional abuse. Uh, and remember, help is always available. So, thank you all for listening to my podcast. And again, you all can donate by clicking the link in the description below. Also, you can buy my merchandise by clicking the link in the description below. And thank you all so much for your continued support. And I hope you all have a great day